Talking about presbyopia and correction. So we have to talk about myopes and hypermetropes. Hyperopes.
Era avanti questo? Grazie. Ok, allora, una realtà che...
I still remember I was at primary school, and at that age, it was a black and white world. At the time, we used very simple spectacles, and I still remember two friends of mine. One was a myope and one was an hyperope, and they looked so funny to me, wearing these strange spectacles, and they looked like they came from another dimension. Yeah, but I probably wasn't the only one thinking about it that way. We need to talk about Lombroso and Trousseau. Cesare Lombroso wrote a lot about crime and criminal attitudes and physiognomics. So the ugly were bad and the beautiful were good. The myopes were introverted, dolichocephalic, mean, and they had excessively developed skull bones and nasal root, elongated eyes, and very intelligent. Hyperopes were the Mongolian type, flat face, small eyes. It was a rule among animals and kids below 8 years of age, and they were lazy. When Lombroso died, and he was submitted to autopsy, and it seemed he had what was called perpetual cretinism, and his theories were dispelled with the passing of time, was proven to be wrong. But, hyperopes and myopes have been studied for many years. This is a publication from 1967. It's about myopes and hyperopes and their characteristics. Many studies have been published, one by an Italian author in the 90s, who stated that, there isn't much about hyperopes because hyperopes are very close to emetropes, whereas myopes are easier to identify. Myopic people are introverted, devoted to small things in a very small dimension, so very small social network. Even though there's no strong correlation, there's some common features. When the two major refractive dimensions are taken into account, we can see that visual defects explode and become manifest and full-blown, as we can see in this study, around 20 years of age. So past adolescents, very young adults, very active male, virility, and young ladies focused on seduction and eroticism. So everything is, they're all focused on their bodies. Young adults, this writer, Tristan Bernard, used to say that the first kiss is not given with the mouth, but with the eyes. So how can we describe a first romantic dinner between a myope and a hyperope? Myopic people have relational problems. They would have taken off their spectacles and would have eaten anything in front of them, whereas the hyperope would have no problem problem would have been very seductive because no barrier would have been present between the two of them. Of course, Dante reminded us that in the middle of our lives, something ugly happens, something bad happens. This economist and sociologist carried out a research project and discovered that you reach happiness when you're 42, at the age of 42. And he carried out his research project and found that the peak of unhappiness is also between 40 and 45. So when we turn 42, we start experiencing a crisis. So hyperops become the majority, and myopia doesn't increase anymore. So probably the arrival of presbyopia is associated with this turning point. Many studies state that in our concept of normality, presbyopia is the starting point of aging. So probably this first step, this is the first time in our lives that we become aware that time is passing. This is a study where we can see the quality of life associated with presbyopia. Presbyopia and hypertension, chronic unpleasant diseases that may cause decadence and have a negative impact on our lives. But many people stay at home with their parents until 40 years of age. So there's a very strange period in between adolescence and old age. Our psyche becomes adolescent for a long time. True enough, adolescence ends at 25. If we stay at home with our parents until we are 40, then we all of a sudden become presbyopes, the short-arm syndrome, physical deterioration, and the need to wear spectacles. We have many stereotypes of the use of spectacles, makes you insecure, less reliable, less confident. We feel like at the end of our professional careers, has Hillary Clinton experienced. So she was wearing spectacles and she was, giving the wrong image. So hyperopes who were so confident in the past inevitably experience negative changes. So instead of going out on a romantic date, they go play cards with their friends. And that happens to VIPs as well. Nicole Kidman and Brad Pitt, they have to wear spectacles. And that's the revanche for myopes. Presbyopia doesn't exist. Myopia doesn't get worse, and so they're faring very well. So all the defects you experienced at 20, you were introverted, secluded, relational issues, become an advantage for a myope. For a myope, presbyopia is not a bad adventure. And if we don't like it, we can do something about it. That's the end of my presentation.